Welcome to Prime Time News here on TV1. You are with me, Disal Kapuge, bringing you the news for Newsfirst, where we are and always will be with the people. Let's start off by taking a look at your headlines.
Religious events to mark Poson Poya Day. Adani Group disappointed, highlights motives of investing in Sri Lanka. Final fuel shipment imported under the Indian credit line to arrive on Thursday. Talks for an additional $500 million. No definite date for the arrival of petrol shipment. Kerosene subsidies may be cut off. A statement from the CPC. Payment made for gas shipment. 20 million rupees paid as demurrage. Fridays declared holidays for public officials. No decision yet on schools. Motorcycle murderers strike again. 6 killings in 2 weeks. Sri Lanka sets a target of 301 for Australia in the first ODI.
The left batsman is making his debut, I'm sure.
And now in your top story, today marks the Poson Full Moon Poya Day. It was on a day like this, Buddhism was introduced to Sri Lanka in the 3rd century.
Poson Full Moon Poya Day is celebrated to mark the arrival of Buddhism in Sri Lanka in the 3rd century BC. In 236 BC, Buddhism was introduced to Sri Lanka during the reign of King Devanampiyathissa. Buddhism was brought into the country by Mihindu Maharahatan Thera and the monks who travelled to Sri Lanka from Dambadiva. One of the most significant events that followed this was the establishment of the Buddha Sasana.
Many dansals were organized across the country to mark the Poson Poya Day, even amidst the economic crisis.
Youth in Kahatapitiya organized a rice dansal for the first time in line with the Poson Poya Day. The Haliala Three-Wheel Drivers Association and the Haliala Divisional Secretariat had organized dansals to distribute cooked grams and manioc.
Many events were organized at the Gota Gogama protest site in line with the Poson Poya Day. Demonstrations demanding President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to step down entered its 67th day today.
Protesters organized a soup dancel at the protest site opposite the President's office in Colombo.
Political leaders have issued messages to mark Poson Full Moon Poya Day.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in his Poson Day message said unity, support and commitment of all are essential for the success of a people-centric goal. He said Buddhism teaches the essence of understanding accomplished through knowledgeable perception. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe has said Poson is a spiritually symbolic day in which the state was blended with the essence of Dhamma politics. Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa says the arrival of Arahat Mahinda has paved the way for the development of the Sri Lankan people across all aspects, including religion, politics and economics, and shaping their lives.
Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Gopal Bagle has issued a special message to mark the Poson Poya Day.
අප දන්නා පරිදි ඉන්දියාවේන බුදුදහම් හිමි වූ පළමු රටවල කිහිපය අතර ශ්‍රී ලංකාවත් සිටිනවා. දෙරට අතර බෞද්ධ සම්බන්ධතා ගේඹුරු කිරීමට අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය නරේන්ද්‍ර මෝදි මේතුතුමාගේ මග පේනවීම සහ නායකත්වය යටතේ ඉන්දියානු රජය විසින් පියවර රේසක් ගෙන තිබෙනවා. මේ අනුව අමරිකානු ඩොලර් මිලියන් 15ක් විශේෂ ප්‍රදානයක් ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කර තිබෙනවා. 2021 වප පොය දින කුසිනාරාව වේත පළසු ජාත්‍යන්තර ගොවන යානය ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ සෙට් පියාසර කළා. කපිලවස්තු සර්වඥ ධාතුන් වහන්සේලා එහිදී ප්‍රදර්ශනය කරනු ලැබවා. මා සහ මහ කාමිසාරිස් කාර්යාලයේ නිලධාරීන් ඔබ සේමට පින්වර පෝසෝන් පොහොය දිනක් ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරනවා. සබ්බේ සත්තා භවන්තු සුඛිතර්තා.
The Adani Group said it was disappointed as it reacted to a massive controversy over an energy project in Sri Lanka awarded to the group.
According to NDTV, an Adani Group spokesperson had said that Adani Group's intent in investing in Sri Lanka is to address the needs of a valued neighbour. He said that as a responsible corporate, the Adani Group sees this as a necessary part of the partnership that the two nations have always shared. The spokesperson of the Adani Group was quoted as saying, "We are clearly disappointed by the detraction that seems to have come about. The fact is that the issue has already been addressed by and within the Sri Lankan government." MMC Ferdinando, the chairman of Sri Lanka's Ceylon Electricity Board, resigned 3 days after he claimed before a parliamentary panel that he was told by President Rajapaksa that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is pressuring him to award the wind power project directly to the Adani Group. The Indian government has not reacted to the claim, which the official later retracted, citing emotional stress, and which President Rajapaksa has denied. The allegations involve a 500 megawatt renewable energy project in Sri Lanka's Mannar district. A letter dated the 25th of November 2021 from the now resigned chairman of the Ceylon Electricity Board to the then Secretary of Finance S.R. Artigala has somewhat detailed the matter surrounding the Adani Group investment in renewable energy projects in Sri Lanka. According to point number 3 in the letter, immediately after the progress review meeting on renewable energy with the President, Ferdinando was directed by the President to facilitate Adani Green Energy to develop 500 megawatts wind and solar renewable energy project in Mannar and Punarin. The controversy erupted a day after Sri Lanka changed its laws to remove competitive bidding for energy projects.
The government has requested India for another $500 million credit line to import fuel. The final fuel shipment under the second $200 million credit line from India is due to reach Sri Lanka this Thursday.
This is the last ship under the $200 million credit line, but there is another credit line that is going to begin. That is the $500 million credit line. Approval is being given for this and the necessary steps are being taken. We are also due to receive a crude oil shipment. We will only need one more ship to manage the fuel requirement during the interim. The Petroleum Corporation and the Ministry of Energy are taking the necessary steps in this regard.
Although the cabinet approval was granted to obtain a further $500 million credit line from India to import fuel, there are no reports that India has approved this request. The $500 million credit line is sought from the Exim Bank of India. Since the last week of March, the Indian Exim Bank had approved a credit line of $500 million to import fuel and later extended a further $200 million credit line for the same purpose. The ship carrying fuel that is due to arrive on the 16th is the final shipment under the $200 million credit line from India. Before the $500 million credit line was approved, agreements were inked with India to operate the oil tank farm in Trincomalee as a joint venture with an Indian company. When the $200 million credit line was extended, a consensus was reached on awarding a project to generate 500 megawatts of renewable energy in Mannar and Punarin to the Adani Group. Now that a request has been made for a further credit line of $500 million from India, what will we have to offer in return? What will happen to the supply of fuel to Sri Lanka if the Indian Exim Bank does not approve this request for $500 million? The Secretary to the Ministry of Power and Energy said that steps have been taken to find a supplier to import fuel on a long-term credit scheme. He added that several companies had submitted proposals on supplying fuel to Sri Lanka according to the conditions laid down by Sri Lanka. However, a final supplier has not yet been chosen. With no final decision on a supplier supplier under a long-term credit scheme and uncertainty over the extension of the Indian credit scheme, what will happen in the future? Certain factions point out that fuel may be imported to the country under a deal struck between the governments of Sri Lanka and Russia.
I went and personally met the Russian ambassador. The Russian ambassador gave me the names of 4 Russian companies. The Russian government said that they do not deal with fuel, but he asked me to write to these 4 companies and inform them of our requirements. But if a Russian company agrees, the agreement will have to be struck outside the tender procedure. When Russia was giving fuel to several countries at a concessionary rate, why did we not accept it for so long? The government was wrong to not enter into a diplomatic agreement to get fuel in exchange for the items that we export to Russia or a similar arrangement. The minister in charge had gone to the Russian embassy and the Russian ambassador had given him the names of few companies and asked him to talk to them. And they do not provide fuel on credit. The minister could have sent his office assistant to get this answer. I am saying that they should have joined hands with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and looked into the possibility to secure gas and fuel at a long-term concessionary rate.
However, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation recently made a spot purchase for crude oil from Russia. The Sapugaskanda refinery restarted after this shipment of crude oil was brought to the island.
We called for tenders. We only purchased crude oil from suppliers who had put forward their bids. But we did something different here. We usually pay in dollars, but we held discussions with the suppliers as to if we can pay in rupees. That is the only thing we could have done. We took the necessary steps accordingly.
The award of the renewable energy project to the Adani group has now given rise to controversy. Will this controversy affect the bilateral diplomatic agreement struck between the two nations? Similarly, will the failure of Sri Lanka to engage with Russia diplomatically result in the country losing an opportunity to strike a deal beneficial to Sri Lanka? If diplomatic discussions are not held with Russia, is it not the responsibility of the government to clarify how Russian crude oil will be purchased in rupees?
Now in more local news, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said that a shipment of 3,500 metric tons of LP gas will be prioritized for hospitals, hotels and crematoriums.
A 3,500 metric ton gas cargo has reached the country. This will be distributed by prioritizing hospitals, hotels and crematoriums. The next shipment will deliver LP gas for a period of 4 months and it will take another 14 days for us to access that shipment. We decided to provide an uninterrupted supply of fuel. But that can be done if we only meet 50% of the total demand. We have given priority in using the fuel stocks to generate electricity, run the transport sector and for the other essential services. The current stocks can last for 7 days. However, a cargo carrying 40,000 metric tons of fuel is to arrive on the 16th. We have already brought down a petrol and diesel cargo. We have placed orders for fuel to reach the country until the end of this month. We are taking steps to import 2 fuel cargoes to meet the demand for next month. Once we sign the new agreement for the Indian credit line, we will have fuel stocks for 4 months. All this will be given on a 50% requirement basis.
අපිට මාස 4කට ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම ඉන්ධන තිබෙනවා. ඒත් මේ සියල්ලම අපි දෙන්නේ 50ක පදනම අරගෙන තමයි.
Sri Lanka's fuel crisis is becoming worse due to the foreign exchange crisis. The shortage has left people waiting in line for hours to buy fuel.
A senior official at the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation told Newsfirst that a diesel shipment will reach Sri Lanka on Thursday. However, the official said a definite date can't be provided for the arrival of the petrol shipment. The CPC said that the government is considering suspending the subsidies granted for kerosene. At the Navala junction, people staged a protest demanding fuel by blocking the road. This led to a commotion between residents and the protesters. The protesters moved to the Narahimpita road to conduct the demonstration after the Navala Rajagiriya road was reopened for traffic. Litrogas Lanka Limited says it has made the payment for a gas shipment that was docked off Keralapitiya for 7 days. A spokesperson for the company said $3.9 million had been paid for the shipment. The government has to pay about 20 million rupees as demurrage for the cargo that had been at sea since the 7th. Litrogas says it will resume gas supplies to the market tomorrow.
The Cabinet of Ministers has approved a proposal to declare Friday as a holiday for the public sector.
Friday will be a public holiday for the next 3 months for all state officials except for those employed in some sectors. The holiday will not apply for officials in essential services such as water, electricity, health, security, education, transport, ports and aviation. The Department of Government Information said steps have been taken to grant leave on Friday to other government services as a solution to the current fuel shortage. The department said it would be appropriate to provide facilities to these officials to engage in agricultural activities on that day.
Education Minister Susil Premajayantha says the new public holiday will not affect the education sector.
රාජ්‍ය නිලධාරීන්ට සිකුරාදා දවස නිවාඩු දවසක් බවට පත් කරලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට මේක පාසල් දරුවන්ට කොයි විදිහටද බලපාන්නේ ඒ සිකුරාදා දවස?
ඒක අධ්‍යාපනයේටයි සෞඛ්‍යයටයි අදාළ වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
ඒකෝර පාසල් දරුවන්ගේ මේ ඉන්ධන ප්‍රශ්නයේ ප්‍රවාහනකට කොයි විදිහටද?
පාසල් දරුවන් විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් යන්නේ.
Most school children travel to school using public transport or by a school van. I contacted the president of the union representing the van drivers. I asked him to meet me at 9 in the morning on Friday. Fuel will be sold to vehicles running school transport services at the bus depots of the Sri Lanka Transport Board. At the cabinet meeting, I requested the Transport Minister Bandula Gunawardena and Energy Minister Kanchana Wijesekara to sell fuel from the SLTB depots to vans and buses. They agreed to that.
CTP depot මගින් ඉන්ධන ලබා දෙන්නයි කියලා එතුමන්ලා ඒකට එකඟ වුණා.
Now, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe has instructed to prepare a plan to bring down tourists from India for the next 6 months. During a meeting with tourism sector stakeholders, the Prime Minister had said steps are being taken to restart operations at the Palali airport.
During the meeting, officials from the tourism sector had said they hope to generate $3.5 billion from tourist arrivals and hope to attract 2.5 million tourists by 2025. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe had instructed stakeholders to prepare a long-term plan to attract 1.5 million high-spending tourists. The Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority has said it expects to attract around 800,000 tourists this year, hoping to earn $800 million in revenue.
Fisheries Minister Douglas Devananda says the Cabinet has responded positively to launch a boat service between Jaffna and Pondicherry in India. The Minister said the Cabinet has also responded in a similar way to launch a flight connecting Palali and India's town of Tiruchi. He added that essential items like kerosene, diesel, fertilizer, milk powder and medicines can be brought through these services. Let's now cross over to a quick commercial break and come back for more news.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ? නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ අයි මහත්තයා ස්ලෝන් නෙවෙයිද දැම්මේ? හදිස්සියට බාලා පයිප් එකක් දැම්මේ. නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටක්. මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටක්. හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප් එකක්.
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජලනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් රංගම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න.
Now back with the news. A person was shot dead along the Wattala-Alakanda road this morning. The shooting was carried out at a densely populated area. During the recent weeks, 6 similar shootings were carried out by suspects traveling on motorcycles.
Footage of the gunman fleeing the scene was captured on a CCTV camera nearby. The victim was shot while he was on his way back from a gym at about 12 noon today. The deceased, Nipun Chandika Pereira, was a 23-year-old resident of Aliwat, Matakkuliya. The police suspect that the murder was carried out as part of an operation of an organized criminal group over a dispute regarding the sale of narcotics. T-56 bullet casings were found at the scene of the crime. According to a correspondent, 2 3-wheelers and a car were also damaged during the shooting. The body of the deceased was transferred to the Ragama hospital for the post-mortem examination. Several police units have been assigned to investigate the incident. 6 motorcycle murders were reported during the past 2 weeks. One person was gunned down opposite the Bastian Mawatha bus stand in Peta. 2 suspects on a motorcycle shot down a person along Nirmala Mawatha in Uyankale, Panadura. On the same day, another homicide was reported in Moragalla in Alutgama. A man travelling in a vehicle was shot dead by a suspect travelling on a motorbike in Ahangama. The motorcyclist opened fire at 3 people travelling in a cab along the Tangol Katargama main road. 1 person was killed and 2 others were injured.
People in several areas took to the streets against the rising cost of living. The protesters were carrying pots and pans and other utensils. We now cross over to Naveksha Gunasekara for the latest.
Burdened by the rising cost of living, the never-ending queues and the shortage of essential commodities, the people are left helpless and without a choice than to take it to the streets. Right now I'm here in Rajagiriya under the Rajagiriya flyover as the kitchen lament people's protest is active today as well. As you can see, there is a large group of people who have joined us who have no political interference, but just ordinary people like you and I who have come here with their kitchen utensils to express their genuine displeasure over the current economic crisis that the country is facing. They say that they need a quick solution to the skyrocketing prices of goods, the never-ending queues and the shortage of essential commodities. They say that this has affected each and every household of Sri Lanka. This is the voice of the people.
Thank you, Naveksha, for that update. Now moving on with the news. Agriculture Minister Mahinda Amaravira says there won't be a rice shortage in the country. He was speaking at a meeting with a trade union representing unemployed people.
Our initial plan was to cultivate about 270,000 hectares. Now more than 470,000 hectares has been cultivated. Farmers are cultivating crops. Therefore, we are confident that there won't be a shortage of rice. We will plan more for the next Maha season. If this plan goes ahead, it will benefit the people. All paddy stocks that are with the Paddy Market Board will be converted into rice and sold at Satosa and cooperative stores. The paddy stocks that are with the Civil Security Department will also be converted into rice and sold. We must recover the stocks that went missing. In addition to selling them at a lower cost, legal action must be taken against them. They must be punished. The fine runs up to hundreds of thousands of rupees. We have filed cases against 20 or 30 offenders.
Despite claims that there won't be a rice shortage, farmers like those in Polonnaruwa say cultivating crops is becoming increasingly difficult.
මේ තෙල් වැඩිච්ච නැති ගොයන් මේ තෙල් වැදුණු අනිත් සේරම මේ මුළු කුඹරම අක්කර දෙකමාරක් විනාශ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ අදට දින 8ක් වෙනවා. දින 8ක් ඇතුළත මේ වගේ ගොයමක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. මේ විනාශ වෙච්ච මේ සියලුම මේ පිටර වී මේක හරි ගහලා මේකේ තියෙන වල් පැලේ මරණය කරලා මේ මිනිස්සු කීයක් හරි හොයාගන්න මේකෙන් බලන්නේ. මේ මිනිහා ආයෙ දැන් මේ කුඹුර අස්සද්දන්න ආයෙ රුපියල් ලක්ෂයක් විතර හොයාගන්න කොහෙන්ද මේ මිනිහා මේක හොයාගන්නේ?
Farmers in Valikalamulla in Badulla say the situation is no different.
දැන් ගිය සැරේත් අපිට පොර මේ දුන්නේ නැහැ. කොහොම අමාරුවෙන් තමයි කුඹුරු කෙරුවේ. ඉතින් දැන් මේ සැරේත් දැන් ඒ තත්ත්වයටම දැන් කරන්න විලායි තියෙන්නේ. වෙන්නේ දැන් මේ තවත් අපි මේ අමාරුවට වැටෙනවා.
පොර ටික දෙනවා නම් අපිට මේ කුඹුරු වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන්. ආටික ප්‍රශ්නයකුත් නැහැ. කිසිම කරදරයකට ජීවත් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. කොහොම හරි පොර ටික ලබා දෙන්න තමයි ඉල්ලා සිටින්නේ.
The draft bill on the 21st Amendment to the Constitution has been pushed to next week's cabinet meeting, as the SLPP had wanted to further discuss the matter. Justice Minister Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, speaking on Face the Nation last evening, said the bill will be discussed on Thursday.
What is the progress? Today we discussed that the bill. At the same time that he informed that there are a few members that who are part and parcel of the coalition government SLPP wanted this matter to be discussed further and they need certain clarifications. For that purpose we fixed the meeting at 4 o'clock on Thursday and thereafter to take up this matter in the cabinet on the next Monday.
Where is the draft?
We have given to all the parties who wanted the copies. In addition to that, we circulated among all the party leaders and all the party leaders who are representing in the parliament, something around 43 or 44 leaders we met and we discussed it. In addition to that, we gave the copies to the party leaders who are not represented in the parliament. Then we gave it to religious leaders and we discussed with them. I have discussed more than 50 organizations, including the Buddha Association of Sri Lanka. All of them are having it.
When is the deadline to pass 21st Amendment to the Constitution?
This is a teamwork. That if it is a matter that I can do my alone, then I can give that kind of fixed time period. Here by knowing the pulse of the members of the cabinet, there is a possibility that this might be approved in the next cabinet meeting. In that context, that I hope we will be able to do it within next 6 weeks time. That is
6 weeks.
6 weeks time. That is my target.
A group of concerned professionals consisting largely of legal and medical practitioners under the banner of Direction Sri Lanka, independent professionals for the nation, have said the 21st Amendment to the Constitution must be passed with positive changes.
Direction Sri Lanka Independent Professionals for the Nation proposes a series of changes for Sri Lanka to overcome its crisis. The president to resign forthwith in response to the demands of the people. A successor president be elected. The prime minister to resign forthwith after the election of the successor president. A caretaker interim national government to be immediately formed, comprising a new prime minister and a cabinet limited to 18 essential portfolios, along with an equal number of deputy ministers representing all political parties. The caretaker or interim national government shall function for a maximum period of 1 year. Members of parliament on the national list should be encouraged to resign as necessary to pave way for professionals or experts of the highest integrity to be represented in the caretaker or interim national government. Only one member of parliament, Mr. Basil Rajapaksa, has so far resigned, with his replacement being Mr. Dhammika Pereira, which does not satisfy this requirement. Action should be taken to rescind the 20th Amendment to the Constitution and to reintroduce the provisions of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution with necessary amendments addressing the democratic way of governance. Immediately upon the reintroduction of the 19th Amendment, steps to be taken to appoint persons with the highest integrity and ability to the independent commissions. Direction Sri Lanka stresses the need to ensure that all of the above 6 action points in its fullest complement is reached and achieved as soon as possible to support and guide Sri Lanka in its difficult journey out of this situation.
The following report is a revelation of an attempt to cause massive forest destruction under the guise of development.
This is the Gonagala section of the Frodise estate. Houses here get flooded even for the slightest rain due to the Batalgala Alla overflowing. A project to extend the banks of the Batalgala Alla was prepared to solve this issue. The Norwood Pradesh Sabha had requested permission from the Central Environmental Authority for the project to be conducted under the supervision of the Disaster Management Unit of Nuwara. However, it has now been revealed that even before permission for the project was granted, the contract for the expansion of the banks of the Batalgala Alla has been awarded to the Frodise Grama Development Society.
The Pradesh Sabha has to obtain our permission to do anything within the estate. They have already given the contract to a third party without obtaining our consent. Another person has paid a certain amount to the Gem Bureau. We see a connection here. There are some massive environmental issues here. The banks on the two sides can collapse. The amount of tea estate land on the two sides reduce. Landslides can take place. If the intention is to reduce flooding, the banks don't have to be widened this much. They want to mine for gems here. That is their hidden intention. Despite the fact that they have received approval from the Gem Authority, we need approval from the Environment Ministry. That is a fundamental requirement. All of this is state land. These houses are located along the banks of the river. What will happen to these houses if the river is deepened? They say that they are cleaning the river, but they have sent these people to mine for gems.
Although a part of the banks have already been dug, the project was halted due to mounting opposition from the people. We spoke to the Assistant Director of the Central Environmental Authority for the Nuwara district, Ajit Amarasinghe. He said that although the Pradesh Sabha had made an application to obtain permission for the project, he has not been able to inspect the area as the relevant payments had not been made. He added that he will inspect the area with all the relevant institutions after the payments are made. Our attempts to contact the chairman of the Norwood Pradesh Sabha for a comment on the allegations of malpractice were futile.
The Bar Association of Sri Lanka has requested for the courts, including the Court of Appeal, to continue to function as an essential service.
Directing a letter to the Chief Justice, the President of the Courts of Appeal and the Judicial Services Commission, the BASL states that it is of the view that the administration of justice is an essential service and has always been considered to be so. The Minister of Public Administration recently took steps to declare a 4-day work week in view of the current fuel crisis and to encourage public servants to grow at home. BASL states that halting work on Fridays will cause an immense disruption to the functioning of courts and will cause great inconvenience to the public as well as to the members of the legal profession, and mentions that a 3-day holiday week will not lead to desirable outcomes for litigants and to the administration of justice.
The core group on Sri Lanka, led by the United Kingdom, has expressed concern over the attack on peaceful protesters last month. This was during the 50th UN Human Rights Council sessions in Geneva.
We note that protesters have exercised their rights to freedom of peaceful assembly and association and freedom of expression in recent months. We are deeply concerned by violent attacks on peaceful protesters and subsequent violence against government-aligned politicians and supporters. Those responsible for this violence must be held to account. We stress the crucial importance of upholding democracy, human rights and the rule of law.
The first one-day international between Sri Lanka and Australia is being played at the Pallekele Cricket Stadium. Sri Lanka set a target of 301 for Australia. However, after rain interrupted play, Australia is now chasing a target of 282 runs in 44 overs. The visitors were 111 for 2 wickets a short while ago. Sri Lankan skipper Dasun Shanaka won the toss and chose to bat first in the first And that's a wrap of Primetime News here on TV1. Thank you for watching, and do join us again tomorrow for the very latest from the News First desk. As always, have a good night and stay safe.